We'll start this session by dedicating this to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya of International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So far we have done the above 6 sessions, and today we are in our session 7 of the 9 sessions. So we have 2 more to go post this. So today our topic is, am I in control? So we'll start with looking at the agenda. So, am I in control of all that I do? So we'll see today as who is an actual doer. Yeah. What is our role in any actions we perform? Understanding, 3 modes of nature. This is a new concept, so we'll be introducing this today. How to get along with people of different modes. How to get free from these modes, and then ending with practical tips of the day. So we'll start with the first topic of the agenda as who is the actual doer. Yeah. So many a times we see that we come across, particular situations in our life, and which happens several times, the same situation. Yeah. But we also see that sometimes we react it in, in a better way, and sometimes, we tend to react it in opposite way. Yeah. So our reaction is different, even though the situation is the same. And have we ever wondered why? Why do we react different at different time points? Right. So when we wonder about the reason as why do we see ourselves, oscillating, from this end to that end, sometimes in good mood, sometimes in bad mood, sometimes, we see that, the same task, we perform it with really high proactivity. And sometimes we see that the same task, we tend to perform it with, really low, right? Sometimes we are really energetic, enthusiastic to perform something. And the same thing, sometimes we see that we really feel lazy, lethargic, right? So it's the same us, right? It's the same person. We have the same amount of expertise. We have the same qualification. And, we see that it's the same circumstance, right? So, but the reaction is different, right? So there is, what this brings us to understand is that, why our performance is not always the same. When we think about this, we see that, that there might be something else, which is also an added factor for these situations to turn up in that way, other than us, right? If we were the only doer, yeah, then the output every time, should be the same. Every time it should be either good, every time it should be either bad, right? But we see that it is different. So that means we are not the only person who does it, right? So we are not the only doer. There is something else, which is also a factor along with us, right? So let's see this, picture. What do we see? A person and a machine, which is laptop, right? And a mobile phone. So when we compare ourselves with these machines or instruments, we see that these machines, they always work the same, right? They always work the same way. They always have the same output. So we can expect an output and it will be that output, right? Right now, when I'm trying to move the slides, when I click on the, right-hand button on my mouse, it will go to the next one. So it gives the same output, right? So machines do work the same, but we are not machines, right? We are humans. So, but we don't have, that's why, same output. Yeah, we act differently at different times, be it the situation is same or different. Yeah. So this is a tendency, right, for us as humans. And now we see, that it's just not us, it's even, great personalities like Arjuna, who was also in the same condition. So this is a shloka from Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 15th chapter, 21st shloka, and it is said by Arjuna. He's saying this, that I have the very same Gandiva bow the same arrows, the same chariot drawn by the same horses, and I used them as the same Arjuna to whom all the kings offer their due respects. But in absence of Lord Krishna, all of them, at a moment's notice, have become null and void. It is exactly like offering clarified butter on ashes, accumulating money with a magic wand, or sowing seeds on barren land. Right? So when is this coming? Is, after the Kurukshetra war happened and Krishna departed from this earth, there was a situation where Krishna's wives, were in difficulty. They were attacked, by somebody. So now Arjuna was trying to save them. And while he was trying to save them, a superhero like Arjuna got defeated, by the enemies. Now, this is the same Arjuna we are talking, because of whom he was the primary factor as well, one of the key factors for Pandavas to win the Kurukshetra war. And we know the amount of huge army the Kauravas had, but he could really come out, right, with flying colors. Now, he getting defeated with as minimal as that enemies who attacked Krishna's wives. We can imagine how his ego must have shattered. Right? So Arjuna acknowledges this, that, it's the same Arjuna. He has the same amount of knowledge, same intelligence level, the same bow, which is, the famous Gandiva bow, the same physical strength he had. But even then, the outcome was not in his control, right? So it seems that, even in this case, when we see it as an example, that something else is also an added factor, which is pulling the strings, right? So, and we see here, we can correlate this to what we see here in this picture. So we see that it looks like a puppet, right? And we feel the same many times in our life, that we just feel that we are, being puppets, and someone else is, trying to work along. So we see two people here who are pulled by the strings, by three women up there. So, and see that even sometimes, no matter how well prepared we are to face a particular situation, we end up doing something else than what we had thought, right? So the number of personalities here, who are on there are doing the puppet show, in this material nature. This is the material nature. So Krishna is introducing here that something called as three modes of material nature, and these three modes, we'll see what these three modes are in later today's class. But these three modes are the one which control us in this material world. Yeah. And Krishna is mentioning this in the shloka. So Prakriti kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashah ahankara vimudatma kartaham iti manyate. The spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by the three modes of material nature. So it's very clearly, Krishna mentions here that, we as spirit souls, we think that we are the doer, right? Whereas actually this is carried out by the three modes of material nature. Material nature here, we say as Prakriti, right? That is the one here. So when one of the key highlights here, Krishna also mentions is by influence of false ego. Now in prior classes, we learned that, the 8 coverings of body, right? And, the 5 gross elements and the 3 subtle. Of the 3 subtle elements, mind, intelligence, and false ego. False ego is, the closest to the soul layer. Yeah, this layer is the closest. So, and it is the thickest. So that makes us think that we are the doer. It's the ego in us, right? Similar to we saw in, Duryodhana's case, that he planned so well. He had all the planning and organizing skills in place. He had the right men with him, right army, everything. And he planned it so well with that amount of, 11 Akshauhini Sena, right? Because he thought he's the doer. If he does all this, he's going to get out winning from the war. But what actually happened? He failed. right? So, so this is, because not everything is within our control. It's three modes of material nature, which is defined here, which actually carries out the, activities. Now, looking this into further with examples, see, in the first picture, we see that, somebody is taking some money from someone else. So if we have been giving, money by someone else, can we be proud of that borrowed money? No, right? And similarly, we can see it as an example from this frog, who looks really happy here. So there's a, story where we see that on a royal road, this frog finds 1 rupee coin, yeah, on his way. And, he thinks that that 1 rupee coin, by having that, he has become the richest person in the world. Yeah. And then he sees, further down, and he sees that the elephant, he sees an elephant which is carrying a king. He approaches the elephant and he tells that, I am the richest person. I have this one. And what would happen if a frog shows that to an elephant, right? And the elephant crushed the frog and just walked ahead. So what is in here we need to try to understand is we should be grateful to all what we have and what we are able to do. We should have that gratitude, that thankfulness, right? And this is the key quality of a devotee of Krishna. What do we really have, if we use our intelligence and we think, what do we really have, to take credit of? Something as basic as, cooking, we cook and we take the, if it comes out really well, we kind of love to take the credit, right? But if we use our intelligence further, where are the ingredients coming from? Are we the only doer to make that vegetable come out so well? It's because we are getting those from somewhere, right? So we are not producing, yeah. So similarly, we can see, when it comes to our intelligence, quite a lot of times we see proud comes out, from in humans because of the intelligence, right? So they think they're really smart. And, if we do something tiny, we really feel very proud. And we see, something like as basic as mobile phones. We can imagine the number of brains which are, used behind one mobile phone to be introduced into the market, right? So just by getting that out of the market for one mobile phone, if there are so many brains in it, if we deep dive further, where are these brains, coming from, right? So it is much more complex, right? So than an instrument, our brain, right? And who has given this to us, right? So everything, Krishna has given to us. So why should we take the whole credit? So here, so far, what we are trying to say is we need to clearly understand that we are not the only doer so far, yeah. And now when we think that, okay, we are not the only doer, so we don't need to take the credit of all the successes we achieve in life, then the first thing comes to our mind is, what about bad things, right? If I am not to be taken the credit of good things, the successes which come out, then I should not be taking the credit for all bad which happens to me. Right? Why are we responsible when something bad happens? So that's the thing, when we think about this question in our mind, that if we are not the doer, then why are, but we are responsible for our actions, then it is really unfair, right? So if material nature is doing this, it is the doer, then material nature should be punished for anything bad we do, right? It's like a thief is, brought in front of the judge, and the thief has done, theft somewhere, and then the thief comes in front of the judge and says that, I didn't do anything, it's the material nature who did this, right? So it's really, yeah, it doesn't make sense, right? So if we are not the doer, then why are we held responsible for something bad which happens to us? Yeah. Now, in parallel to this, we also know something called the concept of karma, right? We know that if something bad happens to somebody, the first thing we say is, it's the karma, it's your karma. And when we say that, what exactly is it? We are trying to say that you must have done something in past which is causing that replication here, right? So that means if we are addressing somebody that you have done this something in past with the concept of karma, that means we are the doer, right? Now, on one side, we are talking about karma. On the other side, we are talking about material nature is doing this, right? So, it doesn't make, we have many questions in mind, right? Which comes up because our scriptures do talk, Bhagavad Gita is talking about material nature. So there has to be, material nature as a factor. Now, may it be karma, and maybe that, both karma and this material nature, they coexist in this material world, right? It may be, right? So let's see further that what role do we play in any action, right? We'll start with this shloka from 18th chapter. Adishtanam tatha karta karanam cha pratagvidham vividhascha pratakcheshta daivam chaivatra panchamam. The place of action, which is the body, the performer, the various senses, the many different kind of endeavor, and ultimately the super soul. These are the 5 factors of action, right? Now, what is this making us understand? Krishna is saying this, that means that we are just not one of the factors for our action. There are other factors as well along with us. Yeah. Now, when we talk about the place of action, which is the body, right? We are limited by this body, right? When we see different species, right? Like birds fly in the sky, right? Can we? No. Why? Because our body doesn't support. So we are given a specific body, right? Within which we are limited with our activities. Yeah. Also, one of the things here is, different kinds of endeavor, right? So when we see in our day-to-day life that quite a lot of times, there's somebody else along with us who is putting the same amount of effort, into something, in some activity. And we see that the outcome when we perform that versus they perform is different, right? So the outcome may not be same. They might be better than us, right? So, and the third factor here is super soul, which is Krishna. So if he doesn't sanction, we don't get anything. It will not work. So these all factors together, make it, results. These are the factors of us, of action, right? Now, to make this clear, maybe we can just see this from Bhagavad Gita 5th chapter, shloka 13 to 15, the cycle, which might make it more clear for you. The whole cycle, the way it seems like, is that we as jivas, we desire, we attempt, we desire, we endeavor, and depending on our desire, the Lord sanctions. And then why are we talking about material nature here? Because the material nature, the role of the material nature is that once it receives the order from Krishna, it helps in facilitation. So jiva's desire, and then Lord, he sanctions, based on whether, our desire should be fulfilled or not. And after receiving Krishna's orders, the material nature, which are the 3 modes, they fulfill the jiva's desire. And we can see there, on top of the 3 modes, we can see Krishna, right? So the modes act under Krishna. So with this, I hope it is clear that with this cycle, how it works, how material nature is coming into picture and what role we play. We mainly play the role of desire, right? So when we see this, let's wait a minute. So how many, we might think that how many things are trying to influence us, right? In previous classes, we learned that our mind influences us, and makes us, do wrong actions. Then we learned also that intelligence is also, it can be also turbulent, and then now we are learning about modes of nature, right? It's too much to digest. But maybe when we compare this with an example, it might sit better, grasp better with us. So it is just like, when we go to buy a product, there are so many factors that influence us to buy a product. Family, friends, advertisements, colleagues, bank balance, all of this, right? So, but what in the end, even though we have so many factors to influence us, who is the decision maker in the end? It's us, right? We take the final ownership, and decision making is on us as how we want to act. Yeah. So we take the final call, right? So let's look a bit more on what exactly is, modes of nature. Let's try to understand that. Yeah. And this is one of the main topics because, as we go into, level 2, which will be a detailed study of Bhagavad Gita, we'll see that Bhagavad Gita mainly covers 5 main subject matters. So the first one is soul, super soul, kala, which is time, and karma, and material nature. So it is one of the important subject matters for in Bhagavad Gita. Yeah. Now, what are modes of nature? So before, in the initial classes, we learned what is soul, right? The difference between soul and body, and what role mind plays. We discussed it several times, mind and intelligence with that cycle of lust, where it comes. And then what does the gross body consist of and subtle? So the Panch Mahabhut, which are the gross elements, and then the subtle elements, which is mind, intelligence. So what is modes of nature is, it is, to how these 8 things, 5 gross and 3 subtle elements, interact with each other and how they influence the soul. This is called as the modes of nature. So the science behind how these elements, these 8 elements, interact with one another is nothing but the modes of nature. Yeah. Now let's see, when we are talking about 3 modes in particular, right, from the first shloka which Krishna mentioned, let's see what are these 3 modes. Yeah. So the 3 modes are sattva, rajas, and tamas. So sattva is the mode of goodness, rajas is the mode of passion, and tamas is the mode of ignorance. And we'll see further how about each of these modes in a bit of detail. So these are the 3 modes, right? Everything we do in our life, are under the influence of these 3 modes. It is a mixture of these 3. Yeah. So let's start with looking at first sattva, which is the mode of goodness. Yeah. So this is the shloka from 18th chapter again, 37th shloka. Yat tad agre visham eva pariname amritopamam tat sukham satvikam proktam atma buddhi prasadajam. That which in the beginning may be just like poison, but at the end is just like nectar, and which awakens one to self-realization, is said to be the happiness. It's said to be happiness in the mode of goodness. So, in life, we perform different austerities, right? Hard work. Yeah. And we do them. Why? Because we know that the outcome of this, would be something good for us. It would be ultimately beneficial for us, right? We can take as basic example, as kids going to school. We see how they struggle, carrying the heavy weightage of baggages, going in there, struggling, learning. Why we are making them undergo that struggle? Because we know that this in the end will be beneficial for them. And similarly, we struggle at work every day in our professional life, right? So day and night. So similarly, all these, what Krishna is trying to say, mode of goodness, it's like poison in the beginning, but in the end, it's nectar. So it might be difficult, it might be really difficult in the beginning, but in the end, it is ultimately beneficial for us. Right? That is mode of goodness. Yeah. And we can compare this to our endeavors in our spiritual life, right? Like in spiritual life, we see that there are certain rules and regulations we follow, like we learned the 4 regulative principles, and something as basic as waking up early in the morning, chanting our rounds, following those regulative principles. It is not easy, right? It is difficult. Yeah? or poisonous, right? So in the beginning, it might be difficult, but towards the end, it is all for our own long-term benefit or good, right? This is the mode of goodness. Yeah. And giving a bit further on it, on how a person works in mode of goodness. This is the shloka which is given. So mukta sango naham vadi dhriti utsaha samanditaha siddhi asiddhyor vikaraha karta satvika uchyate. So one who performs his duty without association with the modes of material nature, without false ego, with great determination and enthusiasm, and without wavering in success or failure, is said to be a worker in the mode of goodness. Okay. So these are the characteristics, like we can say, unwavering. Otherwise, quite a lot of times it happens that, oh, this bad happened to me. Why did Krishna do this to me? That is the first thing which comes out to our mind, right? So, and also without the false ego, the acceptance that we are nothing but puppets, right? It's a big thing for us to accept, right? So, this is the mode of goodness. Now let's see in brief what is mode of passion, right? Vishendriya samyogat yattad agriyam ratopamam pariname visham eva tat sukham rajasam smritam. That happiness which is derived from contact of senses with their objects and which appear like nectar at first but poison at the end is said to be of the nature of passion. So it is just opposite to what we saw in goodness. So passion is which appears like nectar at the first, but in the end, it is not beneficial for us, right? So people majorly in this, this mode end up being worst. Yeah. We learned before about how a diabetic person, as soon as he sees sweets, he gets attracted, and he might go in and just think about the temporary happiness he might get by just grabbing, and having it. But the long term, he might, it may hit it badly. And similarly, we see, again, like we took the example of thief before, they are happy when they manage to steal some money, right? But that's temporary. They don't realize, that maybe a jail sentence is waiting for them. Yeah. And in today's world, especially, we see that everything is so, we want everything instant, immediate. Yeah. We have quite a lot of lack of patience with us. Anything we do, anything we invest, we just want immediate results. Yeah. We may get those immediate results, but they, which makes us happy. But, in long term, we see that they might turn poisonous, because that will develop more greed in us, more hankering. And we saw how this, kind of attachment or lust, how it makes us fall and how it is our greatest enemy in our last class, right? So it kind of triggers, the whole process, whole cycle. Yeah? So further, one more shloka here, which gives the characteristics, of, mode of passion, a person in that. So, Ragi karma phala prekshur labdho himsatmako suchihi harsha shokan vidha karta rajasaha parikirtitaha. The worker who is attached to work and the fruits of work, desiring to enjoy those fruits, and who is greedy, always envious, impure, and moved by joy and sorrow, is said to be in the mode of passion. Yeah. So passion is more dangerous because it has, it has a high, uncontrolled, unlimited desires. It makes us, for example, at work, maybe the corporate life is the best example for this. So we have that passion for work, right? We want to keep doing, because there is an intense craving in us, to achieve those achievements, to get those achievements. And we keep hankering for it, we keep struggling for it. And when we get it, it gives us maybe a little bit of happiness, but again, the next thing is ready. The next target is ready, and we start working towards that. So it's more of just hankering, getting more and more greedy, lack of satisfaction, right? So That's the mode of passion. And then the third mode, mode of ignorance. Ayuktaha prakritaha stabdaha shato kritiko lasaha vishadi dirga shutri cha karta tamasa uchyate. The worker who is always engaged in work against the injunction of scriptures, who is materialistic, obstinate, cheating, and expert in insulting others, and who is lazy, always morose, and procrastinating, is said to be a worker in the mode of ignorance. So these are, the mode or the category where they want to go against the scriptures. Yeah. They want to survive by hook or crook. Yeah. They want to make money by any means. They don't have any rules set in life. Yeah. They just want to enjoy, be it the wrong way, right way, or hyper wrong way. So it doesn't matter to them how they, come in. And we will see further a bit here. Yad agre chanubhande cha sukham mohanam atmanah nidralasya pramadottam tattamasam udhatam. And that happiness which is blind to self-realization, which is delusion from beginning to end, and which arises from sleep, laziness, and illusion, is said to be of the nature of ignorance. So it's like, a person who is a chain smoker or a person who is a drug addict, no matter who advises them, be it a family, friend, doctor, they would continue what they want because they are getting kind of happiness with it. And they will end up having horrible state, even though they are shown the path. So such people just want to enjoy in their state. We kind of compare this, with an example of camel in desert, where, the camel in desert, the food is, say, they eat cactus, right? And we know cactus has huge thorns in it. So when they chew the cactus, they really feel a nice flavor, which makes them happy. But they don't realize that it's not the cactus which is giving them that taste, but rather the thorns of the cactus is making them bleed in their mouth, and it's their blood taste which they are enjoying. So it's like, it's purely ignorance, that thinking that the cactus is giving me, the happiness by eating this rather than my own blood. So they're burning their own body, right, to get that happiness, right? So overall, what comes to our mind then when we see these three modes? We all want to be in goodness, right? But which mode are we in? Just to clarify here, that there is no pure goodness, no pure passion, or no pure ignorance in this material nature. Yeah, we cannot say that one person is completely in goodness, this personality is completely in other two modes. So there is a particular combination of these modes which makes us as a personality. Yeah? And we can compare this, and we can keep this in mind maybe by thinking about color palettes, right? Mixture of colors. And we all know that the huge variety of colors what we get are just coming out from primary three colors: red, yellow, and blue, right? So just three colors are giving so many n number of shades. Yeah. So similarly, the three modes are in mixture, different percentages, different amount of mixtures, in which makes us end into a particular kind of personality. Yeah. And they bind us, these three modes, like ropes. Yeah. We see, that these modes of nature, they bind us like, the strands of rope. Yeah. People who think that, they are free, they can do anything they want. They are not bound by anything. There are class of people who think, right, that I'm free, nobody can hold me, nobody can determine me. So they are really foolish. And it is clearly said in Bhagavad Gita. Each one of us in this material world are fully bound by these three modes of Prakriti, of material nature. Yeah? So now between these modes of nature also there is a competition going on, right? When we say combination, let's see. So rajas tamascha bhibhuya sattvam bhavati bharata rajah sattvam tamaschaiva tamah sattvam rajas tata. So sometimes the mode of goodness becomes prominent, defeating the modes of passion and ignorance. O son of Bharata, Sometimes the mode of passion defeats goodness and ignorance, and at other times, ignorance defeats goodness and passion. In this way, there is always competition for supremacy. Yeah. So we see that, like we have the tendency, these modes also have a tendency to compete with each other. Yeah, it's like a tug of war. And that's why when we started the session, we were saying that, why do we behave different? And, when the situation is same, why do we behave different? Why do we react different? I hope now you can little bit understand why, right? It is like a tug of war between these three modes always. I like the statement here which says that, there's a huge politics going on within ourselves itself, right? Between these three modes as who will be the winner at times. So we also see, in day-to-day life, how when we get up in the morning, we are so calm, it's like we are in the mode of goodness, and we really approach, when things are approached to us, we really look it into a brighter. But as the day goes, we can see the trend within us, that we slowly switch from goodness to passion. Let me get this done. Let me run behind this. And then towards the end, ignorance. So as the day proceeds, it moves, right? From goodness to ignorance, right? Now, when we now clearly know that these three modes really, influence us so much, and there is something called as these goodness, passion, and ignorance, and how the mixture of these, how they compete with each other, and mixture of these make us a personality. Now let us see that what I'm sure that we get this in mind, right? Which is the mode, which is the good mode to be in? Passion, goodness, or ignorance? Right? Now, first thing which comes to our mind, is goodness. Goodness is good, right? But let me compare this with an example, right? So if we are, say, sent in a prison, a prisoner is in a prison, and if you are, say, sent in a prison, and if they give you a choice of room, say we have a first class room, second class room, and a third class room, yeah, with different degrees of services. So what would your choice be, right? Similar to, say, you are then given shackles of maybe gold, silver, and iron, right? And you are asked that which one would you prefer? So if we actually think, if we actually utilize our intelligence, no matter which room we get, which classroom we get, no matter which shackles we get, our intelligence, we should see that no matter what comfort we have there, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, we are ultimately in the jail, right? Our thought should not be that I want a gold shackle or I want the first class. It should be rather, how can I come out of this jail altogether, right? Because only that will give you happiness. So that should be our thought process. So goodness here might be, a gold shackle, a first class room, but still, this is one of the modes of this material nature of this material world, right? So until and unless we are in this material world, we will undergo these all, happiness, distress, birth and death cycle again and again. So our aim should be, our intelligence we should use as how can we overcome, all together to come out of that jail, to come out of this material nature, right? So let's see in this, what Krishna is highlighting here. Tatra sattvam nirmalatvat prakashakam anamayam sukha sangena bhadnati jnana sangena chanagha. O sinless one, the mode of goodness, being purer than the other, is illuminating, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. Those situated in that mode become conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge. So Krishna is highlighting some important things here, right? That definitely the mode of goodness is purer than mode of passion and ignorance. And you might say that, when we say about mode of goodness, there are people who does charity, and they feel really happy, they think I'm good, I'll be all fine, I'll be all happy, everything is going fine. No, Krishna is along with that also highlighting that even people in mode of goodness are conditioned, right? They're conditioned within this material age. By what? Happiness and knowledge. Yeah. So we may, if we analyze this mode of goodness, personalities which has major percentage of mode of goodness, if we analyze, then we may end up that, we definitely get certain percentage of, our for life where we have the sense of happiness, but we still have to undergo those challenges, right? Depression, disease, health issues, death. We have to undergo that. Yeah? And that's why, Krishna says that even though if you are in mode of goodness, you're still conditioned. So we have to think, how can we come out of this conditioned life, within the influence of these three modes of nature. Yeah? So coming further, Krishna also highlights this in 14th chapter, 9th shloka. Sattvam sukhe sanjayati rajaha karmani bharata jnanam avritya tu tamaha pramade sanjayati utha. O son of Bharata, the mode of goodness conditions one to happiness, passion conditions one to fruitive actions, and ignorance covering one's knowledge binds one to madness. So Krishna is clearly saying that none of the chains are good. All are conditioned. Yeah. Mode of goodness is definitely like, a launch pad for us, because it is less sinful, right? People who are in mode of goodness, they're less sinful. Yeah? So our mind can be situated there. We can work. We'll be in a better condition when we are in mode of goodness to work towards our ultimate goal. Yeah, that is our devotional service. So all these three modes, when we say they are conditioned, that means that they will limit us within this birth and death cycle in this material nature. Yeah. So when we learn all this, we would like to be in mode of goodness, right? At least better than the other two, purer than the other two, and it also gives us the platform, right? The launch pad to get into spiritual consciousness. But then second thing which may come up in our mind is, okay, I can try to be in the mode of goodness, but what about people around me? What if, because we get influenced, right? So how about people around me? If I go into this mode, how will I get along, right? So how to get along with people who are in different modes? There's a famous proverb here, that there will be a person in each and every one of our lives who will test all our parameters to its extremes. When you read this, I am sure you'll get the first person in your mind, oh yeah, this so much is true. Yeah? Someone always in our lives try to test our patience, or our tolerance level to our extreme. Yeah? So let's see what kind of people we come across. There are different kind of people. We can categorize, maybe say that some people whom we are really comfortable with, they are fine. Some people whom we can manage. We can always, we are not comfortable, but we can manage by bringing up into a way around it. Some people, they are categorized in our mind that we have to stay with these people at a distance, because if we are close, it might turn out bad for us. Some people are really rude, they're ruthless. So sometimes it really gets so difficult to get along with different kind of personalities, right? And as we say we are in Kali Yuga, as the days go and years go, we are seeing it more prominent, where we see this happening, between as basic relation as husband and wife. We see so much amount of divorces and fights, right? Why? Because it's difficult to get along, with different personalities at that time. Also professionally, we always hear, first thing somebody asks is, how's your work? How's your boss? So the people you work with. So they matter so much, right? Different personalities in our life, may it be personal or professional, we are associated, right? And we can correlate in our current lives something like this. I myself experienced this, in when we get together in family, there are, no matter after how long you get together, there are moments where everybody is engrossed in their electronics, may it be any medium, right? So why? Because we feel that, it's easy to work with a device than with people, because the device just listens to us, right? Whatever we press, the outcome, the output, like we saw before, we know what the output is going to be. It's predictable, right? So, and it doesn't talk back, right? So that's the best thing. But with people, it's so difficult to communicate, to collaborate with them, right? That's why, in today's world, we see this trend where people are so engrossed in devices, and they feel more happy, being alongside it rather than having people alongside. When someone says, I need a break, what do they do in break? Have these devices. Not about sitting with people and, or reading something, or, different things. So that's how, in today's world, it shows the picture for us. So we'll see this again, a shloka from Krishna, third chapter. Nahi kaschit kshanam api jatu tishtati akarmakrat karyate hi avashyah karma sarvah prakriti jay gunaha. Everyone is supposed to act helplessly according to the qualities he has acquired from the modes of material nature. Therefore, no one can refrain from doing something, not even for a moment. Right? Very clear. So we act helplessly. We are helpless. We act as per the influence of modes of nature. Yeah. Now, if we are in a difficult situation, right, how can we tackle that? And we will cover that during our practical tips of the day. So different people, what here we see is they have different qualities. They are attracted by different things. It may be that they are attracted to different kind of foods, different kind of work, different ways. So let's take the example of the, all of our weakness, which is food, right? So different people here, when we see this, and when we have some bulk of people around, we would see that different people would choose different foods available here. And this will be based on their modes. For example, we learn that people who are in goodness would go for something like sattvic, right? Food. People who are in passion would be really, keen to make it really maybe spicy, more tastier, very much passionate that it should be just perfect. And people in ignorance might be falling under the category of meat eating, right? So that's same object, it's food, but the same food will not attract everyone. It will attract people based on what mode they are in. Yeah. Let's take this. This is a short story about a fisherman, where we can correlate, I think, what we just learned in the prior slide. So a fisherman, after his hectic day, he started, going back home, and suddenly it started raining very heavily. Yeah? So what he managed to do was, there was an ashram there, and he managed to, find them some space there to rest, right? So he kept his bag outside the ashram of the fishes, and he went in, and he could smell really nice incenses there, flowers, in the ashrama. And he was really tired. After some time, initially he liked it, but after some time he started feeling really uncomfortable, and he was really tired. So what he did was, he, instead of resting inside the ashrama because he started feeling uncomfortable, he came outside the ashram where his bags were, and he just slept next to the fish bag he had kept outside with that smell of fish. Why? Because he could only get sleep next to his fishes. Yeah, that fish smell would make him feel comfortable. Yeah, and it's a real story. So people similarly are used to be associated with bad habits. Like we can take different examples, like smoking, late night clubs, bad associations. They are addicted, right? So, and if they are addicted, they are in that mode, so they end up doing that, right? So overall, so far we learned how how there is something called as three modes of nature, material nature, and how they influence on every action of ours. And no matter what mode you are in, it will still result into repeated birth and death cycle. So we have to understand that. So coming to next, again, like last time, Krishna identified the greatest enemy, and he also gave us a solution. So the same here, that, well, the modes are influencing us. How Krishna is also giving the solution as how can we get free from these modes. Yeah. So Purushaha Prakritisto hi bhunte Prakriti jan gunan karanam guna sangosya sad asadyoni janmasu. The living entity in material nature thus follows the way of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus, he meets with good and evil among various species. So, in this shloka, the key highlight here is association, right? Why it happens? The reason is this is due to his association with that material nature. Association is the key, right? So we have been hearing this from our parents since childhood, that have the right association, have the right set of friends, because it eventually it ends up for our benefit, right? So what we should be associating with, if he's saying that, if Krishna is saying that, don't associate with the material nature, because it will end up, into being under the influence of three modes of nature. So what should we associate with? Yeah, we should associate with our spiritual endeavors, right? Like getting up early in the morning, reading scriptures, chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And what we are doing right now as well, associating with Krishna by attending the classes like this, by getting the knowledge. So we have to be super careful that we don't just take any random association, because it is ultimately going to be dangerous for us, right? There is, we say this, right? Tell me with whom you associate and I will tell you who you are, right? You can correlate here. So a thief, if he associates, based on his association, he'll always continue doing his activity. So each action, association is really critical to us. They influence us the most. Sometimes association may influence us very actively and even passively, right? So both ways, right? And that's why we are saying here that associate with some devotees, so that you have the right mindset, you are in the right path, and only that can help us transcend. So Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunyo Bhavarjuna Nirdvandvo Nitya Sattvasto Niryoga Kshema Atmavan. The Vedas deal mainly with the subject of three modes of material nature. O Arjuna, become transcendental to these three modes. Be free from all dualities and from all anxieties for gain and safety, and be established in self. So the solution more or less here is that we have to become transcendental to these three modes. We have to go above and beyond the influence of these three modes. Right? We are talking also here about Vedas, right? All the different kind. It talks about all Vedas, right? All the Shruti scriptures and the Smriti scriptures. So Krishna is advising us to get transcendental to these Vedas. Now, what are Vedas? Vedas are actually in place, for just not a specific target of pool of people. It is for entire humanity, right? They address, things for each and every one of us, each and every modes, combinations. So they are basically in place. Why are scriptures in place? Because they want this, they will help us to rise up our level of, from maybe if someone is in more of ignorance, it helps us to, if we follow scriptures, then it helps us to rise to the level of goodness, right? And it slowly then elevates us to bhakti, right? So we can take it as an example, like a doctor, if a doctor is treating a drunkard, who is currently having, say, 5 glasses of alcohol in a day, yeah, and the doctor, first time when he meets the patients and he does all the tests, he recommends that, okay, let's reduce the, intake from 5 glasses to 4 glasses, right? So that is gradual approach, right? To elevate him, to get him off that habit. Yeah. But just because the doctor is saying that have 4 glasses, that doesn't mean, a foolish person will conclude saying that the doctor is encouraging the drunkard to drink. No, it's a gradual approach to elevate. And that's exactly, the purpose of Vedas as well, that it encourages us, and it takes us more gradual to the upward trend. Yeah. So, and slowly, we need to transcend with these 3 modes, right? As soon as we enter. So, and this is what Krishna is advising in Bhagavad Gita, right? So we should not be going for any spiritual shopping, right? People hear different, someone comes and says, oh, this person really gets things done, this demigod, this. So some gods' names are there, right? But it's not the whole spirituality purpose, right? So we need to be careful that if we see some person in maybe saffron attire, not necessarily that that person is really, talking from scriptures and he's really clean. So no. So scriptures are classified, like I said, into, different modes. There are specific scripture which help to elevate, focusing the pool for people who are in mode of ignorance. There are specific Vedas which only focus on, people to elevate from who are in mode of passion, and then, people in goodness mode. So why? Because Vedas gradually, they are there for us to gradually transcend above all the 3 modes, yeah? So that we can, in the end, reach Krishna. Now, we cannot just go randomly. If we want to buy a gold, we cannot go randomly to any shop, right? We have to buy gold. We should have at least a basic understanding that where exactly do we get gold, not in any random shop, and where, not only where we get the gold, but also the understanding as where do we get the good quality of gold. And someone says, okay, we get the good quality of gold in this shop. Even that level of understanding is not enough, right? We need to also know how can we know that it is really a good quality. Otherwise, what will happen is we get cheated, right? So, and we have Bhagavad Gita similarly, which is considered as the essence of all Vedas, right? By all our acharyas, because it has, all the rules and regulations, we need to follow, yeah, to check, yeah. So this is a basic book which will, yeah, which will not cheat us, right? So it is, so we should not get cheated by any other spiritual shopping which we saw. We have Bhagavad Gita, and it is confirmed, right? And it is spoken by Krishna. So we need to follow, and we need to, and also Krishna says in the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita that, the essence of all Vedas is ultimately to know him, right? That is the thing. And there is only one way to get out of these modes, right? So this shloka, Krishna particularly highlights that, yes, the modes are in there. They are really difficult, because we are heavily influenced by them. But these modes are under him. Yeah. So Daivihi Esha Gunamayi Mama Maya Durityaya Mam Eva Ye Prapadyante Mayam Etam Tarantite. This divine energy of mine, consisting of the 3 modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. So here's the solution, right? Similarly, Krishna here, helps us by acknowledging that how difficult is this influence of 3 modes of material nature. Similar to what he did before, right? When we're talking about mind, he acknowledged that it's very difficult to overcome, right? The wavering of mind. So Krishna is giving us the solution here. Like Arjuna, we have to surrender, to Krishna. And one thing he says here is, material modes of nature is his divine energy. Now, so far, what we saw, the amount it influences us, right? We may feel that, oh, why is Krishna, calling this as a divine energy? It's something which is making us do things. Why is it called divine? So when it is binding us so badly, we should not forget that it is, still an energy of Krishna. We need to understand that. The way we have, different hospitals, police stations, or jails, in this world. For example, let's take jail. Yeah. So a jail has prisoners, right? And this prisoners are, who manages this? The government and the prisoners, the officials, right? The jailer and all of this. They manage the prisoners in the jail. So just because we have the officials, who are responsible to manage, in jail, and they are in jail, doesn't mean that the government and the officials are also the culprits, right? So similarly, modes of material nature is one of an official of Krishna, right? Who is facilitating and executing based on the rules which is set by Krishna. And he does, yeah. So no, there is no other solution other than just surrendering to Krishna. That's what Krishna is mentioning, right? Now, this will be the last shloka of the day. So, Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatyaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the mode of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. So, devotional service, it is not part of three modes of material nature. Okay, we need to remember that. And one, Krishna compares here, Krishna confirms here that one who is engaged in devotional service can transcend these three modes, and will not be able to, we will be able to get out of that jail, no matter what kind of shackles we have and not what kind of class of rules we have. Yeah. So that's the end of this agenda topic, and we will now move to the last agenda topic, which is the practical tip of the day, and I'll hand it over to Sri Gopal.
Thank you very much, Nikita Mataji. Thank you. So today's was a little complicated topic. It's not easy. Modes are not easy to understand, and I think so. Our understanding will gradually develop once we go into our, level 2 classes, where we will study Bhagavad Gita in more detail, in more depth, right? So the purpose of our introducing modes is for you to understand that you come across different kind of people, right, in your life, and sometimes we are happy interacting with them, and sometimes we are not, right? It's not the person actually who is responsible for that. There are many factors contributing to that. So rather than developing a kind of negativity towards a person, it's better to understand the perspective, the bigger perspective of things around, right? As we talked about the fisherman who is used to that, right? Regardless of what you give him, he is more comfortable sleeping where, he can smell the, the fish, right? And for us, like, we'll just run away from the place. So we have to understand that they are conditioned to that. Just yesterday I was speaking to someone, who have been an alcoholic. He has been an alcoholic, and he was sharing that recently there was, one of his friends who passed away because of liver cirrhosis. And liver cirrhosis was due to him being an alcoholic. And he was sharing that how difficult it is for a person who is a drunkard to leave, to quit alcohol. For us, it's easy to tell that why don't you just leave, alcohol? But someone who's addicted to it, it's really not easy. And we as doctors know, when those drunkards are admitted into the hospital for some treatment or for some surgery, and they have to stay back in the hospital for 5 days, 7 days, they cannot drink alcohol. And they develop so much of anxiety, agitation, frustration. They become wild. We have to really tie them up in order to control them. So that is the conditioning. That is our conditioning. So we have to understand that, rather than developing wrong perceptions about people, it's better for us to understand that there is something more to do with this, right? Because if you develop negativity about a person, then it is going to not only impact the person, but also you, the entire relationship, and your life also. Your life will become miserable if the person for whom you have developed negativity is very close to you, right? As Mataji was saying, it can be your, any of the family members. So we have to understand that, it's conditioning, it's their conditioning and it's our conditioning as well, right? So what we have to do is to go to, focus on the higher goal in our lives. And we have to help the other person and ourselves. How can we help? By trying to cultivate spirituality, by chanting, by reading Bhagavad Gita, by attending classes like this. So we can control our mind, we can purify our intelligence, we can gradually overcome these modes of material nature, right? And we will see in the next slide this is a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. Again, this verse has been recited by Arjuna. Mataji just took us from a verse which Arjuna recited, that he was feeling helpless. A person who is as powerful as Arjuna, he was defeated by small dacoits. They were just peanuts in front of Arjuna, but he was defeated by them. How come? How is that? Because he knows he is not the doer. He's not the controller. And sometimes we falsely think ourselves to be the doer. I will do it. So arrogantly, so proudly we say, right? Oh, that's just, nothing for me. So we have to be careful about that, right? So Arjuna here recites, like, Nikita Mataji, if you can please go to the next slide, right? So Arjuna here says, Deshakal arthyuktani hridaya tapopasha mana manicha haranti smarsha chittam govinda abhihitani me. Now I'm attracted to those instructions imparted to me by the personality of Godhead, Govinda, because they are impregnated with instructions for relieving the burning heart in all circumstances of time and space. So, Govinda abhihitani me. So these, which instructions is he talking about? What was given by Govinda to Arjuna? It was Bhagavad Gita, right? So when Arjuna was defeated, was feeling helpless, was feeling annoyed, he remembered Bhagavad Gita. And then he said, this Bhagavad Gita is applicable in all circumstances of time and space. It's not that it was applicable just 5,000 years back, it's not applicable now. It is as practicable as it was 5,000 years back. So that is where we have to understand. And here Krishna is repeatedly saying that we should engage ourselves in his devotional service. And what is the devotional service for this age? Krate yadhyayato Vishnu Tretayam Yayuto Makhe Dwapare Paricharyayam Kalo Tadhari Kirtana. Right? We have been hearing this verse repeatedly, because this is so important for us to understand. Because sometimes, we are dragged away with some of our culture, some of our rituals, and we don't focus on the most important thing, which is chanting. And when it comes to chanting names of Lord Hari, what is the most important mantra? It is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Iti Shodashakam Namanam, Kali Kalmasha Nashanam, Nata Parataro Aya Sarva Vedeshu Drishyate. So here, Brahmaji is telling to Narada that in this Kali Yuga, there is no way out other than chanting this mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So this will help us to counteract the evil effects of Kali Yuga. Right? This is the medicine for Kali Yuga. Right? There may be different medicines for different diseases, but in order for us to face the challenges of Kali Yuga, face the problems and overcome the modes of nature, overcome the lusty desires, overcome so many problems, this is the medicine. This mantra is the medicine. So we request all of you, to please chant this mantra regularly, right? As we have been requesting you, you can start with 1 round or 2 rounds. Gradually, we all try to chant at least 16 rounds in a day. That you may come up maybe in 3 or 6 months, but at least please start chanting at least 1 round. Okay, thank you. So I want to open the floor for questions. I know today's session was a bit long, so we are already like way above our routine time. But in the interest, if you have any doubts, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them on the chat box, or you can just ask by unmuting yourselves.